welcome once again to A.O.S Abroad. Thank you very, very much for joining today's episode. Really do appreciate everyone for coming on board. And today we have a very interesting topic, a topic that I feel for those who want to immigrate to Canada, you have to really be aware of. You have to know what is currently going on in Canada. You have to know how you should, you understand, work on your immigration swiftly in order to avoid some of the stories that touch. Because sometimes when we have clients join us and they talk about their stories, it's always sad sometimes when we have people talk about what do they call it? We have people tell us their stories sometimes because we feel that these are problems that could have been averted. These are problems that um, if you had someone that was actually qualified to inform you about the implications of some of your decisions, you understand? These are stories or these are mistakes that could have been averted, that could have been basically curbed. Do you understand? But because many people that work on their immigration, they don't have people talking to them, or let me say, not even people. Some people or many people have many people talking to them about immigration, but they don't have the right set of people that are giving them the most accurate information they should. You understand? They should really know, and the implications of their actions or their inactions, because sometimes you may not do something and that thing that you don't do is going to be the issue behind what you are going to later regret, you understand, not doing. So sometimes it's not just all about the action, but the inaction that you didn't like, the actions you didn't take, the things that stopped you from doing some particular actions may later come to bite you in the, you understand, in the hand. So today we want to talk about one of that scenario, one of those issues, one of those situations where by one of our clients was basically left in limbo, or let me say he left himself in limbo. It's not only that they left him, he was one that left himself in limbo. Do you understand? And I want you, if you're also in this particular scenario, or if you know someone, because sometimes even people that are in this scenario may not have time to listen to, you understand, conversations like this. But if you know someone that knows someone that is in this particular dilemma, that is in this particular situation, do you understand? You should please also inform this person of the repercussions, inform this person of the issues that could crop up at the end of the day if they don't take action when they are meant to take action. Do you understand? So today's article is one of the articles we wrote on our newsletter, on our LinkedIn newsletter precisely. If you go on LinkedIn and you search Relocation 360 by A.O.S, A.O.S, you would see our newsletter. And in our newsletter, we are coming up with a topic that was brought up from a conversation we had with one of our previous new clients. Now, this client confided in us. I'm going to use another name because due to client's confidentiality, we are not going to be sharing his name, we won't be sharing his own information. And many a times when people come to me, I always tell people that everyone has a story, especially when it comes to immigration. Everyone has done something before, or have heard about someone that did something before, or have been in a situation that they didn't even do something because yes, they weren't prepared, they weren't informed, you understand, they just let time pass. So I, for instance, I would always talk about my own story, where me too, I have had my own fair share of doing some actions that I'm not proud of. Do you understand, that really caused me to delay my immigration process? And secondly, not doing some actions that again I'm not proud of, because if I didn't do those actions, or like I didn't do those actions, it's kind of delayed my progress basically when it comes to immigration. So today we have one of such particular scenarios, one of such particular stories. The story of Mr. John. Mr. John, as I said, is not his real name. I didn't put his real name, but he said, "My wife and kids got their Canadian permanent resident visas, but I waited too long and missed my own chance." Is which chance is he talking about? His own immigration chance. He missed his own opportunity. He didn't take action when he was meant to take action. So as a result of that, he is part of those who, at the end of the day, miss their own opportunity to come with their family members. And this is a conversation that many people would argue that, oh, the wife already has PR, right? The kids already have PR. Then he too, if he doesn't even have PR, it should be easy for him to actually get his own permanent resident status in Canada, right? Well, let's now look at what Mr. John said. Is it truly easy for him to just get his own status since his family, his wife and his kid has gotten theirs? You understand? Have gotten theirs, or is it something that he would have to stress on now because now it is now difficult for him to get? Let's look at what, or let's read out what Mr. John had to say in our live session, in our consultation session about his own permanent resident journey, right? So let's move on. The first thing he says, John says, how I how ignoring my immigration timeline cost me my future in Canada. How ignoring his own path to Canada. And which path now? His path through his family, his path through his wife and kids. How it affected, how it caused him not to be able to immigrate to Canada as easily as it should for him. Because let's say he was able to immigrate to Canada with his family. You understand? It could have been much more easier for him to come with his family than now to actually work on it alone. So let's look and let's discuss what exactly are we talking about when it comes to him not getting his own permanent resident visa. Do you understand? Now, Mr. John is saying that his own permanent residence pathway, he thought he had time. He said, I thought I had time until I didn't, right? He said, when my wife and kids began their Canadian permanent residency visa application, their PR visa, I supported them emotionally, but I didn't take action for myself. I told myself, I will do mine later. Let them settle first, his wife and his kids. Because, of course, I'm still weighing my options. And what were his options? I think Mr. John also talked about his options. So let's look at his options. What were his options that he said he was weighing at that particular time? What were his options that he said that made him actually decide that, oh, the family should go first before him actually comes? Do you understand? Now let's read. Mr. John said, at that time, at the time when his family were working on their own immigration, he was still in Nigeria. He said, I was still in Nigeria. My businesses were doing well because he was into business. I was earning tens of millions of naira easily then. My properties were not yet demolished by the Lagos state government. Yeah, I remember he told me about a lot of things that happened because he's from the east and how it was not opportune, you understand, to get some things work for him. He said, I just didn't have enough time for language tests or sending my transcript abroad and so on and so forth. And you have to understand, yes, when you are into business, especially in Nigeria, or not only, don't let me say especially in Nigeria, when you are making money, basically, when you are making money and you are into one physical business or the other, even online business sometimes, you may not have time, do you understand, to do a lot of things that you are meant to do. You may not have time to go for language exams, have time to, you understand, submit your credential. Just like what he was saying, he had a lot of things on his plate that he was busy doing because he had to manage his business, right? He had to work on, you understand, checking his money, making sure that he's earning and he's afloat in his business. But Mr. John now said that later on, he said, but later, the later that he said that he's going to work on his immigration became too late. The later time that he said, okay, when he's stable, when he's able to manage his affairs, when he's able, it became too late for him. And by that time, or by the time he was ready to work on his immigration, the window of opportunity that he had with his family, his wife, and his kids had already closed then. And because I remember when he was telling me, he said his wife too, she was just doing it. She didn't really know it was going to work quickly. She didn't really know that things would turn out as the way it's going to turn out. They just said, okay, they should just work on their immigration. If it works, then fine, they move. You understand? If it doesn't, then you understand. They were not sure of what could come out of it, but they just tried. But now he's telling me, Mr. John was saying in our consultation that now his wife and his kids, they are settled down in Canada. But for him, he is now stuck. He's stuck because why? Because he didn't work on his own permanent residency application. He's stuck because now he now has to bother about getting his own processing started. Now, let's now look. He says, now my wife and children are proud Canadian permanent residents. They are settled, which he is happy about. He said, yes, he was glad that they are settled, that at least their own has actually been sorted. He is glad that his wife and his kids are now secured. They have a good place to live. You understand? They have a good community they are part of in Canada. They are now not just surviving, but they are now making waves. He talked to me about how his kids, for instance, are going to schools, you understand, funded by the government, and how he's happy that, let's say, he was in Nigeria, especially for his elderly ones, the ones that were in secondary school. I was spending millions of naira to actually take them to some of the best schools in Lagos, Nigeria, because he said he didn't just want them to go to public schools or, you understand, to schools that they were not going to sharpen their skills. He wanted them to have access to a lot of, so he took them to some of the best schools and he was paying roughly millions of naira to actually, you understand, fund their school fees on a 10 by 10 basis. But now he said, now that they are in Canada, the children are going to free schools. Even the public schools that he says that the children have access to in Canada, they are far, far better than the public schools or than the private schools that he was first of all taking his children to in Lagos, Nigeria. So if you look at it, he said he was fulfilled. He was happy that yes, at least he was able to achieve that for his what, for his family. And his wife too is working. You understand? She's earning money. She's not just only surviving, but you understand she's scaling through in her, you understand, in her profession. But he now said, for his own self, but for me, I'm still on a visitor visa and temporary status. My businesses in Nigeria worsens and it has started losing money and even assets that he had in his business. He said, I can't work legally in Canada. And of course, he said he can't even access the Canadian government benefits that like his wife is accessing and his children. He said, and I am still not sure which pathway I should go for. Either I should go for the asylum pathway to seek asylum, or either he should go through the various permanent residency routes, whether it be the express entry, the PMPs, you understand, and things like that. He said, I can't even join certain family programs that his wife and his children have access to, and he can't even travel freely because he's in Ontario, as because he came to see us. But he said he can't travel freely, of course, as a visitor, especially now that he's not a visitor, that he has extended his stay. You understand? If you are a visitor, for those that know about what we know as a visitor record or what we know as a visitor visa extension, if you extend your visa in Canada to stay again in Canada, and Canada issues like they accept you, they approve you to stay back in Canada, and they give you that visa extension. The visitor record they give you is not in any way a visa. Do you understand? So if you leave Canada, let's say for instance they gave you the visa extension for you to stay in Canada for maybe like 2 additional months or 3 additional months, but you now leave Canada. You say, okay, because you have business in Nigeria, you leave Canada, you go to Nigeria, you say, okay, I want to go and look into my business, I want to man my business, I want to, you understand, things like that. You now go to, you understand, you go out of Canada. That visitor record that you are given is not a visa, so it cannot allow you to come into Canada again. In other words, you are going to be rejected entry to come into, you won't be able to. And he, because Mr. John is someone, as I said, his family are here with permanent residence, he doesn't want to leave them and have to go, because of course he was still even telling us, I think he has said that down in the article that we are reading. So let's look at the article, let's read more of the article to really understand what he's saying. He said, and I face the fear, the real fear of being separated from them, which is his family members, for a long term. Now you have to understand something. Just like I said, with his visitor record, if he leaves Canada, he won't be able to come into Canada as swiftly as possible. He can come into Canada later on, but he may need to apply for another visitor visa or another permit or program to be able to come into Canada, what, either temporarily or permanently. Now, Mr. John was talking about his silent regrets because at the end of the day, when we were having our consultation, I got to realize that this is someone that he regrets some of the actions that he didn't take as at when he was meant to take it. And that's why I always tell people we come on live to kind of give you stories of people. These are stories that are currently affecting people right now. These are stories that we are not just telling you to just know, but to learn from. So that if you are in that dilemma as well, you'll be able to know the right decision to take as at when that, you understand, issue comes up. And you won't just be part of the other, like you won't basically make the same mistake that other people that have come before you made. You'll be much more informed about what you should do, how you should tackle an issue, and what else you need to actually work on in order to have that. Because I do always tell people permanent residence is just like a plan B. Do you understand? Permanent residence in Canada, especially for countries like Canada, Nigeria, even citizenship, is just like a plan B. Because yes, Nigeria allows you to have dual citizenship. It's just like a plan B that should, in case anything wrong happens in Nigeria, you have another country that you can call home. You have another country you can go to. You have another country that would be willing to actually absorb you into the system and give you all what you need in terms of support and in terms of what? In terms of wonderful livelihood. Okay, Mark Labs, thank you very much for liking our live on TikTok. So let's now move on. Mr. John is saying that I never imagined that delaying my permanent residence application would turn into a serious immigration mistake. What happened to Mr. John? Mr. John was bothered about, and is a legit way, he was bothered about his wife and his kids, that they should go first. They should work on their permanent residence. They should go and enjoy the better life first. And I think we as fathers, we actually have that responsibility to make sure that our families are well off. We have that responsibility that you understand, those that responsibility to shoulder to make sure that yes, our family members don't suffer. It is very understandable. It is the fatherly instinct. Do you understand? It is the fatherly instinct, and you are meant to think that way. But of course, what we are trying to say here is that when you are thinking of your own family members, you to do yourself a favor to think of your own self. Do you understand? Do yourself a favor to not just take your responsibilities and now forget about your own what? Your own advantages, your own benefit, your own opportunity, what you can actually benefit from. Because Mr. John here is saying his own story and he's regretting now that he has made one serious immigration mistake. He said, it wasn't that I didn't qualify for the permanent residency that his wife and his kids were applying for. It was that he just didn't act on it. He didn't. Why didn't he act on it? I think we'll get to know this later. He said, Mr. John said, I assumed that the success of his wife and his kids would somehow guarantee his own success in immigration. You understand? He said, I thought I could catch up. When he was ready, he thought he could catch up with his family members. He said, however, my family members got more CRS points, more cumulative ranking system scores, because they filed without me as their father. Now look at one of the big issues. In other words, his wife filed as a single mother. A single mother of two kids, one of the biggest issues, biggest mistakes, because now the wife has said she's a single mother, right? How would the wife now come back and say, oh no, I have my husband in Nigeria, I want to sponsor? No, because the husband was not added to the application. There's one form that IRCC will state or will give you to fill when you're working on your permanent residency application. That is the form we know as the Family Information Form. I think that's the IMM 5257E, if I'm correct. Now, the Family Information Form is a form that you fill and you state, one, your spouse in that application, if you are married or if you are in a common law relationship. Two, you state your kids, your children, children you have. You list them, their age, their profession, their address, their information. Again, you state your own parents. Let's say, for instance, I am working on my own application and I have kids. I will write my kids. I would also write my own parents. So that in the future, why Canada is collecting this is that in the future, if you say you want to sponsor your parents, because they are already in your application, Canada knows that these are the people that they can actually come into Canada by virtue of your what? Of your invitation or your sponsorship. Right? But Mr. John and his wife, because it's not only Mr. John in this instance, Mr. John and his wife, I don't know what made them think that this was the best strategy. They removed him as the father and said, oh, Canada allows single mothers. Okay, let my wife go as single mother first and the kids. Why? Because, of course, they were looking for higher CRS points, I believe. And because they wanted to work on their immigration themselves, you understand, the wife thought, oh, since my husband is not ready to come to Canada, why don't I just process and of course, it's not that the wife did it at the back of the husband. The husband, just like he said he supported them. So he was aware of the process. He knew what they were doing. Do you understand? He knew what they were doing. So in order to get higher CRS points, for those who know, you understand, if you're under the express entry or you are looking towards provincial nominee programs, you understand, the more CRS points you have, the better. And in this situation, the wife was the one that was younger. The wife was the one that had done the language exam. The wife was the one that was much more qualified. So the husband, Mr. John, just said, oh, you can work on your own and me, I'll be doing my own later. One of the big mistakes. It was a big mistake because it's not that, oh, you staying back in Nigeria and your children and your wife coming to Canada is a wrong move. It's not a wrong move. It could be an intelligent move. Maybe I had one of my friends that came into Canada just this last month. Actually, the husband had been in Canada because he's my friend. We're in the same community. You understand? He has been my friend for some time. But when he was working on his application for permanent residence, he added his wife and his kid that are still back home. So now that he went to take his kid and his wife, because his wife was still into, you understand, nursing school, I believe she was still busy with a program as at that time that he came as a permanent resident. But now, because the husband first came, he made sure he worked, you understand, he saved up, he got them a good house, you understand. Now he went to bring his wife and his kid into Canada. But in the case of Mr. John, who we are talking about now, instead of his wife still adding him into the application, the wife actually removed him, I believe, to get additional points under the CRS point, the CRS system. But what Mr. John is now saying is that his family members still used his own finances as the proof of funds, you understand, for the application, and they got approved. Mr. John is saying he left Nigeria, or his family members rather, they left Nigeria and he felt lonely after just a few months of them leaving Nigeria. So he realized that immigration doesn't wait for anyone. Yes, it's sad, but the truth is immigration again doesn't wait for anyone. The faster you work on your immigration, the better. Immigration has its own rules and deadlines and changing policies, and there is no sympathy for procrastination. Oh, you go and meet the Canadian embassy or IRCC, you say, actually, my wife, we are married. In fact, it can even affect the wife's employee, what do you call it, residency. Because IRCC may construe that as misrepresentation on the part of the wife. And because misrepresentation is a criminal offense in Canada under the Immigration Act and law, they may most likely deport the wife after her losing a PR status. So you see, it's a sensitive topic, but many people don't know this. It's a sensitive topic on its own, a sensitive dilemma, a sensitive issue. Do you understand? So because, as the case may be, as it turned out, the wife worked on her own PR alone, of course, with the approval of the husband. But now the husband is now saying what he wished, like how he wished that he knew sooner. If he knew sooner, you understand? If his spouse or and his children are processing PR, or if they are already approved, because now people don't understand it that there are two ways you can even add your spouse before you come into Canada. Before they finally give you that visa, before you finally get that, you understand, status. Whilst you are applying, whilst you are applying for permanent residence, and even after you have applied and you still want to add your spouse, you can still add him on some grounds. Maybe for instance, you just got married, or maybe for instance, you guys were even separated before, but now you people are now getting back. You can submit some documentations to prove it, and later on add him if, of course, the CIS points they used to pick you is still what is still higher than the higher ranked CRS score for that particular draw or round of invitation. And in the case of Mr. John and his family, the CRS points were high enough to have added him, but they didn't add him because they were first of all not informed about the repercussion, and they were just wanting the children and the mom to have a better life in Canada. Now, Let's look at it. Mr. John is saying being married or related does not automatically what? Get you approved for permanent residency. You need to one, apply within the same stream. So in his own situation, he needs to apply for the same stream of family sponsorship timeline. If the family sponsorship or if the wife has added him to the family before now. Two, you can file together when possible or stay aligned in the process. Know about the process, know what is going on, know how they want to work on giving your spouse a own visa. Watch for expiry dates of permits or temporary resident status. For the situation of Mr. John, he didn't even have permit. He didn't come through study because he was saying he doesn't have time to study anything. Work, he didn't come because he couldn't afford the work. So he came through visit. Now his visit visa is fast expiring. In fact, his visit visa has already expired because what he's now using now is the visitor visa extension, which is known as the visitor record. And visitor record is not what? Is not a kind of visa that you can use to come into Canada. Right? So he said, let's say he knew he could have sought for help. Around that time, he was unsure of application. Around that time, he was unsure. He was indecisive that time. But now he's now saying, what I would have done differently. Mr. John is saying he would have consulted with an immigration professional or even a travel educator like A.O.S. early before he actually embarked or before he accepted to embark on that statement of purpose. Two, he would have prioritized his own file along with the family. It's not that he's going to leave the family. He would also work with the family's file and add his own file to it. Three, he would have acted when he had the strong flexibility. Even with how we say you have to actually look at your work, do your business, make money, make sure you're managing it. You can still become eligible for PR and still work on your PR instead of waiting forward for mandate to come from everywhere. Yawning. I seem tired, right? So now, Mr. John is now saying, I am starting from scratch while watching my loved ones move forward and even get qualified for citizenship after a few years of living here in Canada. Look at what happens. The status that you have in Canada may either make or mar your what? Your experience in Canada. This particular person is saying, this is your wake-up call. If you are a spouse or a parent of someone processing PR, it is not what? It is not authentic or automatic. So don't delay. It is not guaranteed that you get PR, so don't delay. And it is not always an easy to fix issue once you fall behind in immigration. Do you understand? Now, lastly, Mr. John was saying the free resources, the family PR checklist for spouses, parents, and children. Do not make the mistake that Mr. John made. Do not make that same mistake. Get clarity on your immigration pathway. You understand? Get clarity before time runs out. Know what you are qualified for, what you are not qualified for, what you can get qualified for, and what you don't even stand a chance for. Download the checklist from that link. If you're on LinkedIn, or if you can go on our LinkedIn newsletter, this is an article we just published today. You understand? You can go on the LinkedIn newsletter, which is titled Relocation 360 by A.O.S. Now, let's talk. Have you been delaying your permanent residence application? Are you confused about the timelines? Are you confused about the eligibility or family sponsorship? If you are, let's discuss. Let's discuss basically and message. You understand? Message us online. Send us a DM. Send us a DM, whether be it on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube. Let's look into your application. Let's look into your own eligibility criteria. You can also drop us a comment on this live session. You understand? Drop us a comment and let's see how we can be of assistance to you together with our immigration partners. So basically, we come to the end of this. If you're interested, you may ask what is your next step. If you have any questions, as I said, put it on the chat or DM. Share your own thoughts and comments or your questions in the comment section. If you're interested in more insights about Canadian immigration, subscribe to our newsletter and visit our website aos.nim.ng or go on our profile on our bio, whether on TikTok, on YouTube, on Instagram for more tips, more guidelines, more guides and updates on your path to Canadian permanent residence to your international success, A.O.S. So thank you very much, everyone. Do we have any questions about what Mr. John said about his own permanent residence application? Now, one thing I'm going to use to recap the story of Mr. John when he was telling us in the consultation that we had with him. He said that his own immigration could have been easy. And truthfully, when we looked at the CRS score, when we looked at how qualified he was, when we looked at the fact that it could have even been a boosted, what they call it, bonus to his wife. Let's say he worked on his own permanent residence application, and working on it, I mean, let's say he went to take a language test, or he didn't even take a language test, he just did his educational credential assessment, and the wife maxed out the point for language proficiency. It could have been added. One, he could have had his what? He could have had his permanent residence visa with him already in Nigeria, and now decide that okay, maybe within the 6 to 12 month validity of that permanent, the confirmation of permanent residency, the COPR, he could have decided that okay, can I just go to Canada for some time, stay there, get my PR card, and get back to Nigeria and continue my business, and now decide later on anytime I'm willing to go back to Canada and settle there fully. He could have been able to decide there and there, but because he didn't ask, he didn't sort for the right guidance. He didn't, they were just bothered about them working on their PR status, which of course nobody says you can't work on your PR process by yourself. You can. But when you are working on it, at least know what you are doing and know what you are not doing and the repercussion of what you are not doing. So that at the end of the day, you will be much informed. If, for instance, later on, Mr. John was informed that, oh, if you didn't do your PR now, you will not be able to do it again with your family. Rather, you may have what you just have to do the visitor visa like you're doing now. Let's say someone had told him, let's say he was already informed, let's say he actually consulted with a professional, and that professional informed him about what could later have happened in the future based on his actions and inactions. He could have been better informed. And now let's say he later decided that okay, no, I will still not add my own to my family. It won't pain him that much that oh, now they are saying I'm not qualified. It's because he could have known that he was aware of the repercussion. But now it hurts him more because he wasn't aware. He didn't ask the right questions. He didn't meet someone that could, you understand, at least guide him. If you wanted to work on your immigration yourself, no problem. We, for instance, we have a DIY package on our website, aos.nim.ng, or you can go on our link, you can go on our bio, whether on Instagram, on TikTok, or YouTube to see it. And our package, the DIY package, is a package that allows you to do your immigration yourself. The only thing is, if you have questions that need to be answered, you reach out to us. If you want to submit your application, before you submit, our immigration partners can review it to see how well you structured your application. We, for instance, at A.O.S Abroad, we can give you access to language test trainings, to online courses, to virtual classes that you can take to make sure that you are well grounded in the what in the language test before you go do it. But as the case may be, Mr. John and his family, even his wife, they didn't what they didn't take that route. So now Mr. John now has to start afresh what his wife has been able to do successfully. You understand, gotten her own PR status with her children and now staying or living in Canada permanently. So please don't be like Mr. John. Don't be like him. If you have a family and you want to come, even if you don't desire it fully to be in Canada now, you don't know what will happen in the future. You don't know the change that can happen. Like in the case of Mr. John, he too didn't want to leave Nigeria before, but because of the corruption, because of the nepotism, because of how his business dwindled, how his properties were what were vandalized, he had to what he had to leave Nigeria for his own safety. Now he's in Canada, but at the end of the day, he's in Canada not with the full rights that he's meant to be in. And that's why he was saying that he's deciding, should he go for asylum because he feels he has a claim, or should he just do PR and wait on the process, which time again is not really on his side for. But at the end of the day, I just want us to see how decisions that you make a year before now, 2 years before now, or even now, and how that decision can affect you in the future. How it can either make or mar your progress to immigration. So thank you very much, everyone, once again. If you have any questions, as I said, drop it on the comment section. Like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget, at least every week we come on once. At least we come online once every week to talk about trending topics, to you understand, give you insight about immigration and how you as well can work on your immigration yourself or through the help of immigration partners. If you have any questions, please put it on the comment section. We are going to actually appreciate the questions before today. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. If we don't have any questions right now, then I'll call it. You can always send your questions on the comment section and we'll do justice to responding to it once we see it. Thank you very much and do have a lovely day ahead. Bye for now. Au revoir.